Hey guys! Sneaky tattoo shot at all times. This video is gonna be so long, I'm so sorry. So, just to let you guys know, this video is completely about me. So if you don't give a shit about me and you don't care, I would click off right now. Are you still with me? Okay, awesome. The reason I'm making this video is because I find that my childhood was very unique. It wasn't like crazy amazing or crazy bad or anything. It was unique, and I've never heard of anybody having the same kind of childhood experience that I did. So I wanted to share my life story with you guys to show you where I came from, where I am now, and kind of where I'm headed. But I want to share this because I want people to truly understand why I am the way I am. When I was in high school, I used to be extremely chill, is what everyone used to say, and I'm still extremely chill, and I just don't really care about a lot of things that a lot of people cared about in high school, like crazy drama and stuff. It just kind of blew right over my head, and I really just didn't get involved in it at all. And a lot of people thought that, like, you know, I seemed very like I was better than, like I was above it or something, or like they would, you know, they'd have this like hatred towards me because I wasn't involved or something. And I feel like it's because people never really understood me. They never really understood how I was raised and like how that created the person I am today. So I want to tell you guys because I think it's really important for you to know who I am so you can understand why I am living the life that I live. And so I'm going to talk super briefly about my childhood, but nothing really started until I was 16, and that's when like this big change happened in my life. So I'm going to super briefly sum up my first 16 years of my life. Both my parents were born in rural settings, mom in rural Saskatchewan and my dad in rural Kenya, and he came to Canada when he was 12. They were both extremely creative and extremely logical people, and it kind of goes on in different ways. Like my dad is very business creative, my mom is very hands-on creative, but at the same time they can kind of both be that same thing. And so I am very blessed. Like not only did they work extremely hard to be able to provide like pretty much any opportunity that I wanted. Like I was so blessed. If I wanted dance class, if I wanted to go to swimming, if I wanted to do all this, I could, and I could go and hang out with my friends, and I could go to private school and experience all these things. And my parents worked so hard so I could have these opportunities, and I'm so grateful that I had those opportunities because they shaped who I am today. I was always in activities. I was a competitive swimmer for like most of my life. I did dance, I did tennis, I did math. I like tried everything once basically, except for soccer. And my mom never signed me up for soccer, and I was always sad because everyone was always in teams and they seemed to have a lot of fun, but I never did soccer, so whatever. Not bitter about it still at all. I did a lot of sports. I had a lot of friends in the area, in the neighborhood, you know, birthday parties and social events, so it was really fun. As a child, I was very unaware of things, and I was always just seeking fun, and fun in the direct sense of like I am having fun right now, and I really didn't care about anything else. I was kind of in this bubble. Like I grew up in a bubble, let's just say that. I grew up in this bubble of fun, and life was great, and there was always fun things going on, and there was tons of activities to be had, and you know, it didn't matter where you ate. I ate crap food. Absolute disgust. Like I couldn't survive a week eating the diet I ate when I grew up. McDonald's, pizza, Pogos, any kind of crackers, ice cream, that's it. That's all I ate. Like, I remember throwing a huge fit because there were these chicken nuggets and they had like little bits of pepper in the breading or something, and I threw the hugest fit. I was such a picky eater. Like, it was not even, I would be offensive to people when I'd go to their houses, and I would like say, oh, I don't want to eat that, that's gross. Like, how rude is that? That's really messed up. But like I said, I was in this bubble when I was growing up that I really just didn't get other people. And I was very involved in just living my life to the absolute fullest in this bubble here. And that's a really great mentality for a young child to have, is like live life to the fullest, you know, always trying to be happy and fun and searching for like the next fun activity, you know, like that's a great mentality to have, kind of, as long as you realize that there's a life that needs to be built to support that kind of thing. And so my parents had built that life to support my fun seeking. And as I grew older, they kind of tried to pop my bubble and make me realize that, hey, this support we've built, we worked really hard to build it. And when you move out, you're gonna have to build your own support so you can continue to do these things. And that was like a huge shock to me, and I resentful for a lot of it for a while, and I was like, why are you gonna try and make me work hard? And like, I didn't really get it. Not to say that I was like lazy or anything like that. When I was 14, like ever since I was 12 really, I wanted to get a job so I could get more money, so I could go do things with my friends. And so finally when I was 14, I got a job at McDonald's because they were the only people that would hire someone that young. And I don't even think I told my parents. I think I applied online and I asked them to drop me off. I was like, hey, I have an interview, can you drop me off here? And they dropped me off and they're like, okay. And I came back, I was like, yeah, I got the job. They offered it to me on the spot. I think it was because my enthusiasm, like I've always had this great enthusiasm for life and living and activities and fun and excitement and adventure, and I've always had this enthusiasm. I'm never gonna lose that enthusiasm, which is really great because I'm always gonna have a passion for life. I'm always gonna have a passion for the things that I'm passionate about and the things that I love. And that's something I've carried through my childhood, is like, you know, always striving for happiness, always striving for the next fun thing. And I know that there's life involved, and I know that life happens and I have to work and I have to make money if I want to live here and do these things. I know that now. But, you know, when I'm not thinking about that, I'm always thinking, how can I just be happy? And sometimes I'm very happy just sitting in my room alone, watching Netflix, eating guacamole. Sometimes that is the happiest thing. Like sometimes just peace makes me happy as well. But I still love fun and I love adventure and excitement, and I'll definitely see videos of those kind of things. The first job that I ever wanted to do was I wanted to be a cashier because I love to count money, and I've always loved money, like the physical thing of money. And it's not that, and now that I've grown up, I kind of realized that money isn't just this like magical thing. It's tied to a lot of things. So I loved money, I wanted to be a cashier. Funny enough, my first job was a cashier at McDonald's. My second job that I wanted to be, I didn't really think about this honestly a whole lot when I was really little, because I kind of just figured, you know, I have so much time to figure it out. And I never, like I know my parents would put pressure on me to say like, what are you passionate about? But I never really put pressure on myself. And the main reason for this is because when I was 10 years old, I started to develop like kind of bone structure. Like I started to see bone structure and I started to see my features. And I saw this like model face behind this like 10-year-old chubby face. And it was like when I was, I would stand in my bathroom and I had like the long hallway of like the sinks, and then behind me was like a little room for like the toilet and the shower. And so I would turn the light on behind me, and then I would be like in the dark little hall part, and then behind me it was so I was backlighting myself, right? And that's like a technique that people use for modeling. So that lighting allowed me to see these features in myself that I knew I was going to grow into. And I saw them and I was like, wow, like that's really beautiful. I feel like I could be a model, and I really wanted to be a model. And so I would, you know, practice posing in the mirror in that backlit bathroom, and that was kind of like my dream for a really, really long time. And I would get really defensive when people asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up, because I was so afraid to tell them what I wanted for fear that they would just crush it and squash it. Because growing up, being a model, to me was this crazy, highly unattainable job that you could only get if you were this like very specific kind of person. And that it's not a dream job, really. But it is something that only a very specific amount of people can do because of the physical requirements. You know, it's like you can't be a sumo wrestler if, you know, you're not fucking massive. I don't know if that's the best example. So I really wanted to be a model. And that was kind of the thing that I stuck with for a while. And when I was 14, I never really like dressed super like fashion-y or anything like that. But when I was 14, I remember this moment so vividly. This was the moment that fashion like became a thing for me. So I was wearing this like blue t-shirt, just like a regular t-shirt. It was kind of like fitted a little bit and it had probably some stupid slogan on it. And I was wearing just a pair of blue jeans. And I was going out somewhere in the day. And I asked my dad, and I said, hey Dad. And my dad is a very fashionable guy. You know, he always wears beautiful ties, and he's a businessman, and he wears nice suits, and he always, like, he was kind of my inspiration into going into fashion. That was kind of the basics. It was like, I want to look as good as my dad. I want to look professional like him. I want to look like I'm in style. I want to look like I have beautiful things. I want to look luxurious. I wanted to look like him. And it's kind of funny because the gender roles in my family, my mom and my dad, were nowhere near the traditional gender roles. Both my parents cooked, both my parents did housework. My dad was super into like clothing and accessories and really, really luxurious clothing and fine silks and leathers and all that kind of stuff. That was all my dad. And so that's what pulled me into fashion from the very, very core. And I'll tell you this story in a sec. And my mom grew up on a farm and she didn't really care what kind of clothes she was wearing. You know, it was more about practicality, which is totally valid. And I find that kind of myself now. I'm more about practical clothing. You know, she finished our basement off for herself to create a work studio for herself. She was very, very hands-on, and so they completely ignored any kind of gender roles or what traditional roles were supposed to be. And I think that I didn't even know that they were breaking them, those traditional roles. And so that just seeing a woman and a man doing whatever they wanted was so, it never really registered until I started to learn about gender and gender roles and how things are kind of you know. Growing up with that, I never felt like I had to be some way. And my parents never kind of raised me as a girl. They were never like, here are Barbies, here's pink, here's princesses. It was kind of like, whatever you want, you can have it. I loved dinosaurs and I loved bugs and I loved like blue and I loved yellow. And I was super like rough and fun when I was super little. And then I started to build into like when I was like 7 or 8 and I started to get Polly Pockets. And it was more about, it wasn't like a girly, like, oh my god, like playing with dolls. It was like, I love to create stories for them. And that was kind of my main thing, was like creating these like lives. And like you would get all this different houses and sets and stuff. And I just love to create like these stories. And I never really saw that as like a girly thing, I guess. So anyways, that doesn't really matter. But anyways, I just wanted to say that I'm very blessed that I was never raised with any kind of gender stereotype or gender role ingrained into me. And I think that is something very unique to a lot of people. You know, a lot of people grow up with those traditional gender roles around them. The dad goes out and makes the money and the mom stays home and cooks and cares for the children. Like and there's nothing wrong with that, but it just needs to be realized that that's not the only thing that's acceptable. I was 14 and I had a job and I wanted to be a model and that was kind of like what I was aiming for. And then I got braces and really, really shitty acne, and it was kind of like this thing that I always kept at the back of my head. And I never told anybody about this ever until it actually happened. So that was when I was in grade 9. So, fashion. Sorry, totally lost track of what I was talking about. I was wearing this blue t-shirt and blue jeans and I asked my dad, because he was the fashion guy, and I said, hey dad, what do you think of my outfit? And he said, it's fine. And it wasn't like, oh yeah, it's fine, look great. It was just like, it's fine. And that, for some reason, that specific moment made me realize, oh, it's just fine. It's like, fine, it's like whatever, it's boring. It's not even like exciting. I thought it was like, whoa, like cool, like that looks great. It's just fine. And it was just fine. It was nothing exciting, and that really sparked something inside of me to create something more than fine. And so I started going into research about style and fashion in the fashion industry, and like the fact that there were all those models in there, and like my love for being a model, and it just made this beautifully fueled passion for fashion. And so I started to change what I wore, and it was kind of coming to the end of grade 9 there. That summer, I got a whole new wardrobe. I started going to Valley Village and like thrift stores and just getting all these crazy cool fashion things and all these different stores and just going around everywhere. And I completely changed my wardrobe. I lost 10 pounds. I cut my bangs to make this more edgy kind of look. And when I came back in grade 10, nobody recognized me. They were like, who's this girl? Where are you from? Are you from Toronto? Are you from New York? Are you from Paris? I got that all the time because I was wearing like I looked different. I started wearing heels to school. I started wearing dresses and skirts and tights and necklaces and all this stuff. But the thing was, a lot of people, almost everybody, if I'm not mistaken, in my high school would see me dress up and they would say, look at this girl craving attention. And it was never about that. It was never for me about wanting to stand out and gain attention. I just loved putting these beautiful pieces of fabric, and I feel like I need to go back a little bit further. Oh, I'm so sorry. But so my mom, so when I was born, she worked in sales at Hewlett Packard, where she met my dad. And when I was 4, she had this like quilting bug inside of her, you know, for like making quilts. And she said, I'm gonna take a year off and I'm gonna get this bug out of my system. And here we are 16 years later, and she's still there, and she's absolutely thriving in this industry that she has put herself in. And so growing up, I loved being creative, and I loved painting, and I loved fibers, and I loved fabrics, and I loved patterns and colors and making things and crafts, and I still love it to this day, and I love making things with my hands. And so this fashion thing was this amazing way for me to create almost like an armor that told a story that I could actually touch in color and pattern and movement and shape. And it was this amazing method of sharing a story. And I feel like now that I'm saying this, I've always loved telling a story, and I've always loved being a character and putting on this image, and I've loved that. And now, where I am now, I'm kind of realizing that my character, I can just be myself. And you know, the best actors, like, they play the characters that they kind of are themselves, right? And so I'm kind of playing this character, and it's myself, and I'm just really working into who I am. Anyways, so that's what fashion was really about for me. It was being able to create this story, and sometimes that story was reflective of who I was that day. Sometimes I was a rocker, sometimes I was super fashionista, sometimes I was like kind of edgy, sometimes I was really girly, sometimes I looked like a dancer, sometimes I looked very preppy, sometimes I could be crazy and wild, and it was just different every day, and I loved being able to do that. And that's what fashion was really about for me. It was never about trying to look good or trying to draw attention. And you know, the attention didn't hurt. I'm not gonna lie, because I did get attention because nobody in my school was dressing like that. And so for me to come in as this girl who's wearing all these heels and skirts and dresses and makeup and everything, and people are like, well, like, who's this girl? Like, what is she doing? It was never about that for me, and I don't think a lot of people understood that. And I never, ever thought that I was ever better than anybody because of the way that I looked. It was just something fun for me. And it's because you were probably doing some stupid, immature drama type bullshit that I never cared about that stuff. And I could never compel myself to care about that. And so the reason behind that is, growing up, my parents fought a lot, like, with each other. My grandma used to live with us, they would fight a lot with her, and then when I became of age to kind of understand things, they would fight a lot with me. And I received a lot of yelling and a lot of it felt like hatred and negativity. And it was never anything I was doing. I was never like fucking up as a child. I was never like going out and being a delinquent. Like, it was just about life, and like our ideals weren't connecting, and it was very traumatic in the beginning, but then I developed a very thick skin. And so any kind of negativity, it would just like whoosh. And that's still the way I am today. Any kind of negativity, it just goes right over me. I don't touch it, I don't hold on to it, nothing. I can acknowledge it and I can work with it, but now negativity fuels me to be more positive. So if someone's coming at me and they're yelling and they are screaming their head off, my gut reaction is to gain my composure, look them in the eye, and ask them what's going on, and understand that problem, and try to bring positivity back into that situation. I used to work at McDonald's too, which was kind of like for like 2.5 years, and I'd have angry customers all the time. And this was even stupider than high school stuff, because these people were fucking screaming, "I didn't get my sauce!" Hold on. Chill the fuck out. I talked to them and I would calm them down, and I would be like, hey, like, I'm so sorry about this, you know, here's your stuff. And that is how I deal with negativity, is I get to the root of it. Why is this person being negative? How do we solve that issue? And now let's move forward and do that solution. It's like, if negativity is there, there's a reason for it. What's that reason? Let's solve that reason. Because a problem is something you can attack with action. Negativity, you can't do anything about it. It's there, you've just got to get rid of it. It's just gotta, like, you just gotta get it out there. That's how I deal with negativity. And so in high school, there was all this negativity, and I just, whoosh, nothing. I never held on to it. I couldn't. And I had one friend, and she's still my best friend now, and she kind of gave me like insight into what was going on in high school, because she was kind of like this very good observer of what was going on. And so she would observe and she would hear these things and let me know that, like, she would say, you know, people don't like you, people are saying that they hate you, and blah, blah, blah. What I realized is that it was never about people hating me. I'd never done anything to anybody. It was the fact that people didn't understand me, and they didn't understand why I could just brush off this negativity. They didn't understand why I would come to school dressed the way I would. They didn't understand how I could be so carefree with my friends and laugh and be loud and whatever and not care and wear a skirt and heels and then just brush off any kind of negativity and not really worry about what was going on around me, just really focus on where I was in that moment. And a lot of people didn't understand that. And so now, hopefully you do understand that that's, you know, I mean, I'm not like that much anymore, but in high school, like, I feel like not a lot of people got that. And it was never about trying to look good or trying to look cool. It was just about this fun medium that I had to play with and playing with it and loving it and loving that expression and loving fun and loving adventure and loving my friends and loving my experiences. And that was what high school was really about for me. It was just to experience stuff. And I got to experience a lot of stuff. But then, so that was grade 9, that was grade 10. Grade 10, there's a lot of like drama stuff went on, as much drama as possible, but it was all within my life. It wasn't really about a lot of other people. It was like, I was dating one guy and I fell in love with another guy, and that was kind of my thing. So what ended up happening with that is the guy that I was dating, I broke up with him and I started dating this other guy that I like had this crazy instant connection with. It was so weird. Like I was dating one guy, I had a crush on another guy, which already like what? And then this other guy comes in and I just was like drawn to him instantly. And so I was like, fuck, all right, let's do this. So, and we ended up dating for almost 3 years. But in that process, when we started dating, I kind of got into this really like teenager lifestyle. Like I was smoking a lot of weed and I was skipping class all the time and I was late almost every single day. And I just didn't care. And I'm kind of glad that I had that time in my life where I was able to just not give a fuck. So I could realize that like, okay, you had that opportunity to do that, to experience that like teenager angst kind of thing, but that's not who you are, and that's not, you can't continue that. And I'm kind of glad that I at least got to experience that. You know, a lot of people go through high school and they never skipped a class and they never did anything, and it's like, you gotta live, right? I don't know, that's just me. So I'm glad I got to have those experiences and not have like any kind of crazy permanent repercussions. Like you know, thank God. I never did anything too crazy though. Like I never did any kind of other drugs. Like I smoked for a little bit and just like did stupid stuff. I just really didn't care. And then, so I was into art, I was into fashion, and coming up so the summer after grade 10, we did a lot of crazy things. We got in a lot of trouble. And that was kind of like my most like rebellious, angsty teen period, was grade 10. So then in grade 11, I was thinking nonstop about universities and where I was gonna go. And this was something that was ingrained into me since I was like 11, is like, you're going to university, you're gonna do something that you're passionate about. My dad really wanted me to do like business or banking or something. My mom was just kind of like, whatever you want to be passionate about. And so I was into fashion. And both of my parents knew that like the fashion industry, it's not this like frou, it's like a business. And so they were really on board with like, it's creative and it's a business and it's something that you can get a really good education in. So that was what I wanted to do. And I wanted to go to New York and study and go to Parsons or something. And I had all these crazy ideas of where I wanted to go for university. And so to apply to all these universities, you had to do an art portfolio. And I had never actually taken like a traditional art class in high school or in school before, really. Nothing like traditional. And so I had no portfolio. I had a lot of stupid things I had done as like for fun, but nothing that I could submit as a portfolio for an art university, you know? So I was in grade 11, going through the first semester of grade 11 and just really working on my plan to what art pieces I wanted to create, and I was really developing this plan of what my portfolio was going to be. And as I started to get into the end, so the end of the year, this was 2011, getting into the end of the year, and really working on this art stuff and really teaching myself how to create art and how art is this process. And I was teaching myself this on my own, and then something happened in that learning process that popped my bubble completely, and it made me so mindful of what was going on in my life, what was going on in my own body, what was going on around me, what was going on around the world, what was going on in the heads of people that I loved. And I really just became mindful. And that happened January 2012. And I will always remember that date for the rest of my life, because that is when my life truly began. Hopefully I summed up pre-16 as best as I could. hopefully you understand a little bit more about myself. The next stage of my life is when everything changed. I changed my diet. I had terrible acne, and I had headaches constantly, and I was starting to gain weight, and I was always a pretty skinny kid, so I never really worried about that. But then as I was like getting older and kind of losing my child metabolism, I started to gain weight, and I was like, oh shit, I want to be a model. I'm not gaining weight because I can't be a model then. And so everything changed, and that really helped me as well to make this change. And so my diet completely changed, and I started eating healthier. I started to eat whole grains and more vegetables, and like actually sit down for dinners and stuff. And my relationship with my parents changed. Like, remember, I was a super angsty kid, and they pretty much hated me. Like, I'm sorry parents, I was so terrible. But that changed, and I really started to understand their perspective, and I understood what they meant by like this solid foundation of life, and I really got it, and we really changed our relationship that year. And I kind of saw them as not just like a parent who was trying to control me, but a person who was just trying to look out for me. So I started to eat healthier, and I changed my relationship with my parents, and I just became more mindful of what was going on in my life. And then in April, my friend and I went to this convention. It's called America's Next Top Model Live. It wasn't like a modeling convention, it was just like a fun girls' day out kind of thing. And there was like a fashion show and beauty stuff, and like just fun little stands. My friend and I were in the cafeteria, and someone approached me, and they said, hey, we're doing a casting couch thing. It's like something for people to be discovered at. So come to the stage at 3 p.m. and you can walk on the catwalk in front of a bunch of agents and, you know, see what happens. And at that moment, I was just like, me? Okay, sure. So I was really excited about that. We went at 3 o'clock, and I walked on the catwalk in front of the people, and I went backstage, and a lot of people approached me, and they were like, oh, it was all about acting stuff. And I was kind of like, I'm not really an actor, like, no, I'm good. And so I was just chilling backstage, and I was like standing really close to the entrance to walk on the stage. And then the modeling competition started just after. It was similar to the casting couch thing, but for models. And so I'm standing right by the entrance, and I had like a 1 on my stomach as like my number. And so somebody running this modeling competition thought that I was one of the models, and they were like, you're not on stage, grabbed me and like threw me onto the stage to walk again. And I was like, what? So I walked again, and I was like, cool. And then afterwards they were talking about like, did everyone fill out their application? They called out number 1, and the girl didn't come, and I was like, oh, that's me. And I grabbed her application, and I threw it in the garbage, and I replaced it with my own, and I ended up winning one of the wildcard modeling spots. And so a modeling agency called me 2 weeks later, and they said, hey, you've won our wild card, come on in, we want to, you know, talk to you. And I was like, what? And at this point, I had no braces, I was losing weight, like I looked good, my skin had cleared up completely, I was eating healthier, and like, I was ready for this. I went there, and so they're like, okay, you know nothing about this, why don't you try out our modeling school? So I begged and begged and begged and begged my parents, please, can I do modeling school? Please, can I do modeling school? And finally, thank God, they were like, okay, fine, you can do modeling school. So that summer of 2012, I did modeling school, and it was a lot of fun, and I made a lot of friends, and it was just an amazing experience to really understand myself a lot more and how to take care of myself, and it really helped me grow up a lot. So then I was in grade 12. And grade 12 was probably one of the best years of my life so far. I had a boyfriend who had graduated, I was still doing fashion, and now I was a model, and now I was actually doing work. And I did runway shows, I did catalog, I did editorials, I did hair shows, I went on auditions all the time. I was never in school because I was always on auditions and always on jobs and stuff, and it was really, really fun. And I loved that point in my life, and I was in school as well, and I did amazing in school because for our school you had to have like a certain amount of required courses for each year. And so for grade 12 you only were required grade 12 English, and the rest was open. And so I did grade 12 English in grade 11. So I had my entire grade 12 was full of electives, and it was yearbook, and it was fashion, and it was business, and it was food, nutrition, and it was just all these fun things that I loved and I enjoyed. So I was super passionate about going to school every day, and I had like grade 9s coming up to me being like, oh my god, are you Madeline? Oh my god, you look like Kendall Jenner. And I was like, thanks. And it was just really cool, and I started seeing people dressing like me, and I started seeing them, I had these like cups with the straw in them to drink water, and I started seeing people bringing those cups, and they had like the tote bag, and I had like this like signature look, and it was like, I heels and tights and a dress and a cardigan and my tote bag and my cup. And I started seeing little grade 9s dressing like that, and I didn't even realize it until one day this girl walks by my locker and she's dressed like exactly like me, and I was like, what? And I like freaked out. I thought, I mean, I didn't say anything to her, but I just thought it was so cool. And like that grade 12 year, and like all of my friends were there, and like I started to make more friends, and I was just very social, and you know, people were like, wow, like she's a model and that's so cool. And I never really thought like, oh my god, I'm a model, like I'm so great. It was just like, I'm finally living my dream, and I'm so grateful that I'm here. And it was just about loving that experience, and it was never really about like, I'm better than you guys. Never in my life have I ever thought that I was better than somebody, never ever in my life have I ever thought that I was ever better than anybody, because we're all our own, you know? So I modeled, and I was in grade 12, and so what I wanted to do was take a year off instead of going to university. So I stopped my art portfolios, and I said, I'm going to take a year off, I'm going to do modeling full time, I'm going to do classes at a university after hours, like continuing education kind of thing. And that was my plan. And then my parents were like, oh, but like, why don't you just apply to colleges then and like see if you can get in? And I was like, I don't want to. But so they made me apply, and then I applied, and then I got in. And then they're like, well, like you got in, like you need to go to college, like you need to get an education. And I was kind of like, I'm gonna take a year off, what are you talking about? And they're very, very stubborn. I'm not gonna go into the details, but I accepted the offer to go to Humber College, which was a 20-minute drive away. So what ended up happening, actually, just after I accepted the application, or just after I sent in the application, I believe, I was in an art class one day, and this was something I had like planned to do for my portfolio. So anyways, I was in this illustration class, and it was the last day, and they said, we want you to draw a cereal box or something you might find in a grocery store. And I thought, all right, I'm in this middle of like, I'm living my healthier lifestyle, and I love kits. So wouldn't it be amazing if there was some kind of kit that had everything you needed for a healthy day's worth of meals? And so I'm like drawing this thing out and everything, and I'm like, this could actually help people. This kit could actually be sold in grocery stores and could actually help people live healthier lives. And that was the moment that I kind of conceptualized what my business was gonna be, and I just ran with it. And that day I remember calling my boyfriend, and I was like, I had this great idea, and you know what, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna do it, and I'm so excited, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur, I'm gonna create this thing. And then from then on, it was just about me developing what this was and inventing this product and researching health. I researched so much about health, and a few months into researching, I read this book called Skinny Bitch, and it was about going vegan, and it was about how animal products were supporting this like disgusting factory farming business. And I like was reading this, and I was actually crying because of the stories that they were telling, and I was just sitting there like, my opinion about veganism before I went vegan was, how could anybody do that? And I find a lot of people, when they think about veganism, they always follow it with a question. How could they do that? How can you live without cheese? What is that even? What do you even eat? And so when people say vegan, it's always followed by a question. And to me, that means that people don't know what vegan is. And that's why I want to do all this information to let you know, like, this is what it is. And it's not this like deprived lifestyle where I'm sad all the time. It's very incredible. That's another story. So I went vegan, and I started eating a lot healthier, and my health improved a lot more, and I didn't even think it could improve anymore, but it did, and I was more energized, and it was great. And people around me didn't really get it at all, and they were kind of like, oh, like, are you gonna be healthy? And then I went to college, and I met a lot of people, and I met these two girls, and they were very spiritual, and they were kind of witchy, and they started to help me get into this really spiritual part of my life. And that was when I kind of started to distance myself from the people that had been really important to me. And they didn't really understand it, and I was changing so much, and they just really weren't able to keep up with that. And so my best friend of 10 years, and she was negatively impacting my growth, and I had to let that go. And I had a boyfriend a lot of years, and he was negatively impacting me, and there was a lot of other things, like he cheated on me and whatever. So I had to let that go. And I found myself in this place. I had no boyfriend, I had no best friend. Of these two people that I had for the past years, these were like my core people, and I didn't have them anymore. And that really opened me up to be vulnerable, and I started being much closer to this other girl who I had known since grade 8, and now she's like my best friend, and I couldn't imagine life without her. And then I got a different job. I started working at a tea shop. That was really fun, and I just even got more in touch with my spirituality because these people knew a lot of different things about like crystals and meditation and all this kind of stuff, and like different religions and tea, and how tea was such a beautiful practice, and that really helped me like slow down. And so yeah, and then I became really, really close friends with my manager, who was at Tivana, And that was just awesome, and I started to experience like more things. And so now I was like 18 and I had a job and I had good friends and I was hanging out a lot of, like I was going downtown a lot. That next semester, so third semester of school, so beginning of my second year, I had a lot going on and I was applying for all these business grants and I had a lot of school going on and we were doing internships and I was going downtown like 3 times a week and it was like such a crazy commute and I was miserable, like absolutely miserable. And this was the end of 2014. And then the beginning of 2015, and I said, this needs to change. I am sad, and there was a lot of other personal stuff going on, like drama with like the ex, and it doesn't matter. In the beginning of 2015, I started doing this thing called Madeline Monday, and I had my Mondays off, and I would take those days to really just go out and do things that made me happy and made me feel really secure on my own. And it was all about me, not about like, oh, let's go hang out with a friend. It was like, I need to be happy on my own. And that really transitioned into like this beautiful self-love thing that I still am like working on a little bit today, but I really feel like I love myself and I'm really happy that I can say that. And then that last semester of college was like a fucking nightmare. Like we had to do this fashion show and I don't want to say too much about it because I'm probably going to offend some people, but it was absolute hell. I had an amazing team of people that worked with me and they were like incredible, but that team of people was like the only good thing about that experience, unfortunately. And then I was applying to this competition as well. I wanted to try to win $8,000 and it was like this pitching competition thing in my school. And so I did like the first pitch thing and then I went on to the second round and I did that and then I was on the final round and it was like in the middle of, at the end of March, just before like graduation and stuff, kind of just before graduation, I won first prize. And it was like a Dragon's Den type of thing. Like I went in there and I pitched for like a minute and a half and I had my product beside me and I had like a TV screen and everything and there's photos. I'll show you a photo. Yeah, this was me pitching. And then I won, and I won top prize of $12,000, and that was for my business. And that really allowed me to say, okay, I've got this business, this is gonna be my passion right now. And I kind of forgot about fashion for a while. It was like, I'm always gonna go back to fashion because I feel like I love that and it'll just be something small that I'll do, but I really focused on this business. And so I finished college and I had that summer and I said to my parents, you know what, I really want to focus on this full time. I know I just graduated, but I don't want to get a job right away. I really want to focus on this full time and see where I can take this when I have now this money. And I'm like, okay, you know what, you won this money, like we're gonna give you this summer to work on it and see what goes and see what happens. So that summer, a lot of stuff happened in that summer and I really changed a lot of myself, but I was able to kind of try all these different angles of my business, of my product, and I was able to actually like create and manufacture like a shit ton of units for my product and like sell them to people, and that was incredible. And I got to actually do that, and like it was like this amazing experience that like I had thought of this thing and now I was actually holding this thing. So I was trying to get that into grocery stores, and then so that was what I was doing, and I was talking to like Sobeys and like smaller grocery stores and stuff, trying to get my product in there. And I realized that like to get that in there, there was a lot of other stuff that I had to do, and there was a lot of time that I would have to wait. And especially with Sobeys, like so things were happening at such a high level that I had to wait like months and months and months between like, oh yeah, okay, let's keep going. And it was like kind of ridiculous. And so in that time I was like, you know what, let's do a Kickstarter campaign. Let's make this Kickstarter campaign and like let's try to raise some money for this. And I had these huge ideas of like this Kickstarter campaign was gonna like start my life, and like, yeah. And so I put a lot of work into it, and I never regret that. Like I had to put a lot of work into it, because if it failed and I didn't put all my effort into it, it would have been like, well, you didn't put enough effort to make it work. But I put my 100% into it and it didn't work out, and that made me realize that, oh shit, I need a social media following. I need people that support this company and this business, and then I can do a Kickstarter campaign. And that made me realize that so this was at the end of the summer that this all happened, because the beginning of the summer, like everything was going on and there was lots of like meetings and going around, and it's just a lot was going on. So this was at the end of the summer. I did the Kickstarter campaign. It was like early September, and it didn't go as planned. And it was like the second day, and it was going on for like 30 days, and like the second day I was like, it's not gonna happen. And I was worried and I was stressed, and I was like looking up traveling opportunities, and I was like, I just need to get out of here. Like I just need to leave, and I don't want to be here anymore. And I didn't know what to do, and I really needed to just get out and like clear my head and get away from this business and just like step back for like a week. Just I wanted to step back and just be like, I need to be myself again. I was so consumed by this business for so long, and it was like if I wasn't in school, if I wasn't doing homework, if I wasn't hanging out with my friends, I was working on this business. I had no other free time, and it was like such a strain on me for so long. And finally I was on Facebook and I was looking, like I saw all these traveling opportunities and I was just like, didn't know what to do and I couldn't think about anything. And I saw like my aunt in Salt Spring Island in BC post on Facebook, and I saw this ad on Facebook to be a guru with Shopify. And I remembered this girl who lived in Mississauga and she had just moved out to BC a year prior, and I knew that she was doing this job. And it was a remote position and it was like customer service. And I've always loved customer service, and I was like, interesting. Clicked on it, looked it over a little bit, and the hours were from 4 p.m. to midnight. And I was like, wow, that's different, but I really like that because that would give me my days to do my work and to do my business and to explore, and then I'd work in the nights and then I could like support myself. And so had all these thoughts going on in my head about BC, and I went outside into my backyard and I was standing on the steps in the sun, and it just absolutely hit me, and it was like, you're going to move to BC. You are going to get that job and you're going to move to BC, and you are going to create this social media following. You're going to create all these videos. You're going to create this organic following that you need to do this Kickstarter campaign and to really make your business thrive. And you're going to do that. And it was such an overwhelming moment in my life, and I cried because I was sad that I was going to leave my friends and my family behind. But at the end of that, it just felt so right. And it was like this pull, and it was something was pulling me to BC, and they were like, this is your next step. And I really saw that moving to BC and then exploring and doing my social media and building up this website that you'll see, which I get free working for Shopify. And it was like, yeah, that's what you gotta do. And so I told everyone, I was like, I'm gonna be moving to BC, I'm gonna apply to this job. And my parents at first were like, okay, like full-time job, like that's kind of a big deal, even though they were like, get a full-time job and move out for like so long. And then finally I was like, okay, I'm gonna get this job and then move out. And they're like, well, okay, get the job first and then we'll look into moving out. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And I didn't even realize when I applied for this job how competitive this job is. Like I think like 2 to 3% of people who apply actually become a guru. And I had no idea that going into it. And I was like, oh, like they post on Facebook, they probably want like so many people. And so I just applied, and it took like a month or so to kind of the whole process. But then I got the job and I was like, all right, parents, I got the job, like I'm moving out. And it was arranged to like go live with my aunt for a few months while I kind of went there and saved up some money so I could move out and like move out on my own. And so that's what I did. My dad and I then drove from Toronto. We drove my car out to British Columbia. And we drove through the States, and we went to Chicago and Denver and like Salt Lake City and Portland. Portland was so fun. Watch my videos, you'll see. And then I was in Vancouver, and I stayed with my aunt for a few months, and I saved up some money, and I was really confident, and I was like, I really want to move out for February 1st because I don't want to move out on my birthday, and I want to have like be set up before my birthday. So it was crazy because I really thought that I was going to move out to some cabin on the island and be really like hippie and rural and stuff. And then I was going to go see a cabin on the island like on a Sunday, the Sunday before February 1st, and like the day before she called me and she's like, oh hey, I'm so sorry, like I already rented it to someone else. And I was absolutely crushed, and I was like, no, like I was gonna live there. And so I was like, you know what, I want to move out for February 1st. It's in like a week, but you know what, I want to move out. And you know what, let's just move to Vancouver for a few months and let's just see what it is and just experience those people. And I went on Kijiji, and so on Sunday I was like, you know what, I'm gonna move to Vancouver. And then on Monday I was on Kijiji, and then I saw a couple places, and I on Tuesday went to go see a bunch of places, and then there was this one, and I came home and I was telling my friend about it, and I was telling her about my day, and I just kept talking about this one place that I was at. And I was like, it's got a great location, and like it's on the ground floor, and it's not in an apartment, and I really like that, and I like how it's on my own, and it's like this nice little area and everything. And she's like, I think you really like this place. And I was like, I do, that's the place. And so I called him like right away, and it was funny because when I called him and he's like, oh, hi, it's crazy that you called me just now because I just came in to grab something and I was leaving. If you had called me a minute before or after, I would have missed your call. So I called him and I said, I'm gonna bring you my deposit tomorrow, I want to live there. And I brought my deposit the next day on Wednesday, and it was settled. And so then I'm Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then I moved in on Sunday. And here I am. So watch the next video, and it's gonna talk more about how I've learned from my past and who I am now and kind of where I'm going in the future.